Thanks,
you.
and thank you so much for joining this session. Sir, I guess we have almost all the students have joined the session, or one or two are remaining. So I'm sending them the follow-up email. Meanwhile, we can start with the session.
Okay, then I'll go ahead and make a start. Okay. And Dr. Gamal will help me on the Q&A sessions when we get to it. Okay. So here we go then on all of those on the master's degree course with briefing notes. First of all, congratulations. If you've got this far to the thesis, you've done really well to get through all the stages. On the postgraduate diploma course, the modules were quite intense. On the master's degree course, they were a lot more intense. A lot more information crowded into each module. So well done. The mountain is nearly climbed. You're nearly there. You only have the thesis to go now. So this thesis, what is it? We'll explain in detail, but for now, let's just start with some of the basics. It's a written, that's a typed document of not less than 10,000 words. That's around 20 pages. A little bit later, we'll define exactly what we mean by 10,000 words. It's presented in electronic format. You do not need to print it and bind it like a university thesis. We only need the electronic version. So this is 10,000 words, around 20 A4 size pages of what you need to complete. Well, why do you need to write this thesis? Well, because you're on a master's degree course, and nearly every master's degree course in the world requires a written thesis. Because writing this forces you to learn in ways which you've not done so far. A lot of what's happened so far has been talk and chalk. It's been didactic. We present the information. Now you get a chance to show that you can use the information. You can dig deeper into topics. You can question prior beliefs. Is that really right? You can evaluate and interpret evidence and learn in ways that you can't in other approaches. So writing a thesis teaches you the standards for writing academic reports. As you come into senior positions in the supply chain, you'll have to write many reports. You need to get used to being able to do that. Got to learn to advocate and use an evidence-based case. Just saying, I know that's the situation, will not get you donor funding. It won't get you donor funding in the last 30 years, and there is absolutely no chance it will get you any donor funding now. So you have to learn to be able to present an evidence-based claim. Make a claim and support it with evidence and logic. It does not mean you have to have all the answers. Part of this thesis is being able to find out some of the answers. But it does mean that you have to make a case. It helps you to think critically by examining issues from different sides and looking at the problem in depth. So that's really what we're looking for in the thesis. We're looking for you to apply the knowledge that you've acquired during this course. And you've acquired a lot of knowledge. You don't have to apply all of it just now, but you have to show that you can apply it in meaningful ways. The thesis is not especially hard or difficult, but it does require that you undertake some basic planning and time management skills. You have to commit the time and the effort to its production. You're going to have to plan how you will undertake the thesis, when you will make the major decisions, the implications of the decisions you're going to make, and have to plan what you're going to do and the time that it's going to take you. And plan how you're going to monitor your own progress. Are you keeping to your own plan? Are you following your own plan? We're going to give you lots of support and guidance in how to do that. But fundamentally, you have to plan the thesis. It's not enough just to have an idea and sit down and start writing. That will not work. You've got to plan how you're going to do things, how you're going to gather the information, how you're going to gather the evidence, how you're going to put your case forward. And you're going to have to plan the time it takes. The biggest mistake people make is not allowing enough time or planning far too ambitiously. Try to keep to reason. Try to keep to what's possible in the time that you have available. So how do I approach this task of writing this thesis? We've prepared guidance notes for you, which you'll get at the end of this webinar. But basically, it's in 4 phases. And the first 3 phases are all about planning, and some more planning. And then finally, you get to write the thesis. If you don't do this planning, you are not likely to succeed. So phase 1 is getting started, thinking about what you're going to do, trying to get all the information together in your head. Then start collecting the preliminary information. Where is it? How do I get it? What's available? What's not available? Then the detailed planning of what I'm going to do, my timeline plan and the Gantt charts. Finally, writing the thesis. And then the last step is to submit it. Also available to you is a list of frequently asked questions. Although all the information is presented in these 4 phases, we also have the FAQs at the end. So you can just look up whereabouts is that? What does that mean? In the FAQ section. A mentor will be appointed for you. Well, why do you need one? You don't have to use the mentor. The mentor is there if you require assistance and advice. They can assist, but they cannot do the work for you. Do the work. The mentor can provide guidance. The mentor is not going to choose the topic for you. If you have 3 or 4 topics and you're not sure, you might ask the mentor for a bit of guidance, but you have to choose the topic, you have to do the research, and you have to write the thesis. But the mentor can give you some ideas a little bit. If you're not quite sure, is this the right thing? You can ask the mentor for a little bit of guidance. You don't have to use the mentor. If you're happy working alone, any on the Francophone course are happy working alone, they're used to this sort of thing, then that's fine. But one mentor will be available for you to ask questions if you wish. So starting this phase 1, and the point about this, if you look at the pie chart on the top right of the slide, thinking about writing the thesis is 70%. Think about writing the thesis. That's where most people go wrong. They don't think about it enough. They don't plan it enough. They want to go straight into writing the thesis. So in this phase, start thinking about it. Start thinking about how you're going to choose your topic. And do that by reading some of the sample documents that are available. By now, you should know how to find them. Doing a Google search is not easy. WHO moves the URLs every hour. Global Fund often hides and forgets documents. World Bank documents get tucked away in strange archives. It takes a bit of work to find them sometimes. So what's the kind of documents you should be looking at in this phase 1? Any national public health supply chain assessments. If your country has a Global Fund grant, it will almost certainly have a pharmaceutical country profile. That will have a lot of information in it. If it's had a USAID grant, it will almost certainly have an assessment. Read those profiles, get the overview of the totality of the public health supply chain operation in your country. You're not going to write about your country, you're going to write about a region or a different country. That's fine. Same research for the country or region that you're going to be involved in. Look at some of the donor reports, look at some of the audit reports on the donor grants, any maturity level assessments. The UNICEF combined donors have done lots of maturity assessments. How mature is your public health supply chain? You're writing about the private sector. Similarly, there are reports and assessments available on the private sector. This time, it's just getting that information together as you start to think about selecting your particular topic. So in that, think about the total PSM operation. Don't go just straight away. I'm expiry rates. I know it's a big problem. Go straight to expiry. Just think about the total operation. Where are the major problems? And what's the evidence? It's not enough for you to say, I know that's a problem. Sure, you're right. But that will not get you any donor support. What's the evidence for these problems? What are the published reports on these problems? Nearly every country has been assessed and assessed and assessed and assessed again. There's lots of reports. The main problem will probably be trying to decide which assessment to use. When you've looked at those different assessments of the supply chain problems, start thinking about choosing one problem area. So the key points around that is, what is the problem? Clearly state what's the problem area you're going to choose. It might be something simple like expiry rates, might be something more complex like management structure or staff turnover or lack of warehouse space. What's the problem? Then who says it's a problem? What's the evidence? What's the published information on this being a problem? Then why have you chosen that problem? What's your interest in this area? And then why is it a problem? You don't have to know why it's a problem. You just have to think about why it's a problem. You can say, oh, I'm doing a bit of research to find out why it's a problem. Or you might already know why it's a problem. But again, evidence, not just you saying, I know why it's a problem. What's the evidence for it being a problem? Well, think about these different areas. What's the problem? What's the evidence for it being a problem? Why have you chosen it? And why do you think it's a problem? That's phase one, starting to choose the problem, looking at the background information and evidence that's available. Phase two, now you start collecting some basic information, and now you start focusing. Understand what you're doing and the size of the task. You're going to write about 10,000 words, around 20 pages. So you need to do some research around that. And we come back to the critical role of planning. So we're going to plan. What's the problem? How did you identify the problem? Well, I did an internet search. That's fine. And I got published information. And I have 2 published reports here of why it's a problem. That's great. How are you going to measure the problem? What KPI are you going to use? What key performance indicators are you going to use to measure the problems? Where did those KPI come from? Are they WHO KPI, perhaps JSI, USAID KPI? Think about how you're going to measure it before, during, and after, whatever you're proposing. How will you formulate a solution to the problem? Not what is the solution, but how are you going to go about formulating a solution? Maybe you've got a group of friends or colleagues and you're going to discuss it Delphi committee style. That's fine. There's other ways to look at it as well. Just think about how you're going to formulate a solution. Doing it on your own is often not that good. Just think about who else you could consult with in that area. You're going to need to prepare an action plan for solving the problem. It only needs to be 1 page, very simple action plan, and a budget. It only needs to be a 1-page budget. Very simple, very basic. We'll describe it in a bit more detail soon. But just think about how you're going to prepare that action plan. How you're going to prepare that budget. Where you're going to get the information from. How you're going to measure the problem is reduced. Not that you must measure it. That's off in the future. How will it be measured? What KPI are you going to use in the future to measure that this problem is reduced or has been resolved? Start putting that information together and start completing the template we give you, which is available in phase 3. Research is basically in different parts. You can do structured research. You're looking for a particular activity. So you're looking for my problem. I need to look at what's happening on my problem. Remember, it is research, not a random collection of personal opinions. Who says expiry dates are a problem? How do I find out about expiry dates in my country? What's the level? What's the activity? And it might be there's no information available. That's okay. That's part of the research, saying there's no information available. Investigation, you're going to collect the evidence, looking at the source material. All research has limits. Set a time limit on the research. You might set 3 days to do the research. That's okay. But a clear time limit, it's limited. You can't find the information within that time, then you've got to draw a line and say the information is not readily available. Support, argue in favor of your chosen topic. There's a big problem because of staff turnover in the supply chain. What's the evidence? How am I going to put forward a case that that's really the problem? Illuminate more background information, whatever else is available and published on the problem. Putting that together, but a clear limit on the amount of time you're going to spend doing that research to populate the phase 3 template. We can collect data in different ways. There's primary data, that's physical collection. You can go to the warehouse and count the stock. That's one way, but it's very time consuming and frankly, in writing this thesis to do that. You can review the documents that are available, perhaps the inventory dispensing, the issue vouchers, the purchase orders, things like that. But again, there's often a lot of information there. Maybe you just want to take a sample of them, review what documentation, perhaps you might review 5 or 10% of the documents that are available. Or I can collect secondary information. I can look at all the information that's been published and then try to analyze it. I can look at all the other information that's available. Maybe there's Ministry of Health reports, maybe there's donor reports that you have access to. You can get the information from there, review the data and consider it. So different types of research, you have to decide which type you're going to undertake, and you can undertake multiple types, and how much time you're going to spend doing it. This concept note is a 2-page note where you're going to start collecting the information. Little bit of an extract on the screen. The full concept note is in the briefing notes for it. So we'll start off with just the country name and what's the gross national income and the World Bank income level. Total pharmaceutical spending per capita. Not always published. You might have to calculate it. You might have to look at the total pharmaceutical expenditure and divide by the population. Some countries, the only one that's available is the health expenditure. You might have to calculate what the pharmaceutical expenditure is. If you've got a pharmaceutical country profile, it will probably tell you your pharmaceutical expenditure is around 40% of your healthcare costs. So you'll have to get the healthcare cost, 40%, and then divide by the population to get the per capita. You can't just leave it blank. You have to fill it in. What are the top 5 diseases in your country? Some it will be malaria, TB, HIV, AIDS, slightly different in different countries because that sets the profile and the areas that we're interested in. Lots of other information on the concept note. Start filling it in. So in phase 3 now, you make your final decision. This is my topic, and you're going to prepare your 2-page concept note. and submit it to the mentor for review. Concept notes are not marked, but you get a chance to discuss it with the mentor and say, oh, that looks reasonable. Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, that's a good topic for a thesis. Or maybe you should think about other areas. You also need to produce a simple Gantt chart, a time chart for your thesis flow, and submit that for your mentor for review as well. Before you start all this, read the briefing notes and make sure you understand what is required. Plan, 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 and do some more planning, and plan the planning. Always look at how much time you're going to allocate to the process and be realistic. As a simple guide, we're recommending not more than 20 days to gather the information for your research. A few notes. Don't start writing the thesis just yet. Get the concept notes approved by the mentor first. You do not have to choose the most difficult, the most expensive problem. Choose any of the identified problems in your procurement supply chain. You don't have to provide a perfect solution. You can say it's difficult and there's not enough information and I need more research, but you should suggest at least a temporary or a pilot solution that could be tried. Original research, we're saying around 20 days. You shouldn't be looking at more than that to collect the information that you need. You do not have to produce a detailed budget. We do need a budget, that is a requirement, but typically around 1 page. All we really want to know is what you're suggesting $10,000, $100,000, $1 million, or $10 million? Where does it fall in the order of magnitude? You do not have to suggest only public sector. You can look at private sector operations as well, or any combination of public and private. So this concept note is not marked, but it is reviewed. You're going to put your chosen topic with at least 2 published references that this is a real problem. Or if there's no published references, some other form of evidence. Maybe you have access to reports which are not published online. Why you've chosen the topic, how are you going to do the research? You're going to do primary research or secondary research or some of both. You're going to go to the warehouse and count boxes. You're going to do a survey of people in the field to see how they respond, how they feel. What's your approach? How are you going to formulate a solution to the problem? Perhaps a Delphic committee. You're going to ask people what their opinion is. You will propose a solution and ask them for their advice and guidance. Understand, you have to take some original research. You can't just take a report and use all of that. You can use a report, provided you cite and quote it, but you have to do some original research. Again, around 20 days of research. Think about the solutions that you're proposing. You can't propose multi-year million-dollar projects. So try to pick a topic that's relatively easy and quick to solve, like expiry dates. You can do something to make them better. Maybe you can't solve the total problem on expiry dates, but you could make the problem better and easier with some staff training. That's reasonable. You can do the research on it. Where is the biggest problem? Is it at the clinics? Is it at the provincial state store? Is it at the central store? Is it because we're receiving short life products? Your research will be, where is the problem? And then what can we do to address it? Think realistically. One of the biggest problems we have is that people try to be grossly overambitious. They're trying to generate $10 million project, not on the time we have available. So the task is to identify a problem and propose a potential solution. So the overall aim, one area of weakness, describe the problem, evidence of the problem, formulate some potential solutions, an action plan to implement those solutions, just a one-page action plan. Some KPI, key performance indicators, how you're going to measure the problem and how you're going to measure the action plan implementation. An outline budget, again, just a very simple one-page outline budget. We will provide you a template for the outline budget and some unit costs if required. You're going to use a Gantt chart to help you plan. So typically, current status, month 1, key problems, month 1, decisions going on into months 2 and 3. You're going to produce a Gantt chart like this. So typically 3 months to produce the thesis. Look at what you're going to do, where you need to be each month in the process. It's your Gantt chart. Thesis needs to follow a logical flow. You should use a logical flow process. Try to explain the problem, what you're going to do about it. When complete, you submit your concept note to the mentor. You can ask the mentor to review what you've done at any stage, month 1, 2, or 3. Perhaps he provides some guidance to you on how they feel about it. Okay. We'll pause here because you've had quite an intense session for 30 minutes. We'll have the first Q&A session and then we'll go to part 2. So do we have anything in the chat box? Not a lot by the look of it. Okay. Okay, any questions, please type them in the chat box or raise your hand and we'll get you to unmute and ask the question. You want to just raise your hand and we'll try and unmute. Everyone's stunned. I've gone so fast and so detailed that nobody can think. Huh? You want to ask a question, just raise your hand and follow on. Dow, go ahead and unmute, please, and ask the question.
Yes, hi, Dr. Andy and all. Thank you very much for your detailed presentation. And we now learn more about how to write a thesis. However, in Vietnam, I found that I'm still confused about the specific problem. You see that we are now no longer working with the treatment facility. Mostly we interact with the central level, like a Ministry of Health. So I think that currently I have the big problem with the PSM problem in Vietnam. It's a longer lead time than planned. So this leads to the delay shipment and delay and sometimes shortage of the ARV drug. So can I choose the problem, something like the lacking coordination at the ministerial level that lead to the long lead time?
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
An entirely reasonable one. You could also look at procurement. Why is procurement taking so long?
Yes, but how can I collect the data? Because I just have the old record for the lead time monitor. Like for every year, I monitor the lead time for every shipment. So can I use this one?
Yes, you can use that data. That's fine.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Collected. That's no problem with doing that. Or you can even use a survey. You can ask people what's their experience of the lead time as well.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah.
You have prime data. You have primary data because you're monitoring the lead time. So you can use that data. Yeah?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Andy.
No problem.
Over.
Okay. Sorry, Kanyenda. Please unmute and ask the question.
Thank you so much, Prof. I just want to find out if the concept note has got also the specific word count, the limit.
No, the concept note is not included in the word count. There's no word count for the concept note. There's an outline template for it.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much.
Prof.
Yes, please go ahead, Jamal.
Yes, there's no word limit for the concept note, and there's no marking. So I think we need to stress this also.
Yes, the concept note is not marked. You don't score anything for the concept note. What you get with the concept note is permission to proceed to write the dissertation. Wango Francis, please unmute and ask your question.
Thank you, Prof. Greetings, everyone.
Greetings.
I had a couple of questions, but the presentation has answered quite a good number of them. Thank you so much, Prof. I wanted to find out if it needs that we approach certain institutions, public or private, in the course of this thesis and research, and it requires an introductory statement from Empower. Is that possible? An introductory letter?
Yes, we can certainly give you the introductory letter. We have done that in the past to a number of organizations. I can't promise it's going to work.
Okay.
And we can ask our partners at UNITAR as well as a UN agency to give you an introductory letter, so we can give you a double whammy to get in the door.
That would be nice.
All right. I can't promise it would work, but I can promise we can give you the letter.
Okay. Okay. That was my major concern, apart from the other ones that were answered already. One of them was also in French or in English. Can we do it, which this course is specific for English speakers? Or
this is the English speaking course, the Francophone course. I think if you wanted to do it in French, we can discuss it with you. We could probably do it. Yeah. We just do that. I personally don't do the French. My French is no longer good enough now to do that, but we certainly have plenty of Francophone staff available. Okay,
thank you very much. That's okay from me.
Okay, then on to Lacambadora. Yeah.
Oh, yes, thank you. Yeah, good evening. Yes, I have a question about the country. You mentioned a couple of times your country. So it's my country, like a country where I'm stayed, or any country I can find good information about?
Can be any country you wish to choose. Normally it would be where you are based. It does not have to be your country of nationality, but you decide which country you want to use.
Okay, thank you, Professor Andy. Thank you.
Okay, but if you choose the USA, I think you'll find that's going to be difficult to solve their problem.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Dr. Jamal, anything you want to add before we go on to round 2 of the session?
Only to congratulate our colleague for reaching this stage of their education. Congrats to all of you.
Okay, good. Yeah, we can certainly give you the introductory letters. Yep, there's no problem with that. Okay, I'm sure we'll have more questions later, so we'll go on with the second part, and then we'll have a second Q&A session when we've done that. Okay. Okay. Okay, so in phase 4, you're actually going to write the thesis. Point around this is before you start writing it, look at the scoring assessment matrix. We give you this in the briefing notes. Look at which sections score high. What are the key gaps in PSM? That scores 10 points, the others around 3, 4, 5. You're going to put more effort into those sections which score high. So we've given you the scoring matrix. That's how you're going to be marked on the thesis. So put the emphasis, put the effort in those sections which score the highest. Okay. Of course, you're going to start writing the thesis, and you can request your mentor to review it at any time, perhaps give you some feedback on that. Within 1 month, really, you should start having the mentor review with you. And also check the progress on your timeline. So you'd plan to do this in the first month. What have you actually achieved in the first month? So by the end of month 1, you should really have written in the thesis, what's the status of PSM of all health commodities in your chosen country? What are the key problems in PSM? What are the key gaps? And you know, key gaps scores high. So make sure you put some effort and focus into that section. State your chosen problem to be studied, why you've selected the problem, just a couple of lines, how you're going to collect the evidence. Really, month 1, you should have already got some of the thesis written. By the end of month 2, you should be completing the section is, how did you design the information gathering tool? How are you going to collect the information, the evidence that you're going to use? It might be a survey, it might be direct observation, it might be collecting issue vouchers or purchase orders. How did you design the tool? What are you doing? Report on the new information and verification. So if you're going to collect lead times or purchase orders or issue vouchers, who's going to check that you've done it correctly? Well, you can double check yourself, that's okay, but some form of verification that you've analyzed it correctly. State the key gaps in your specific problem and how you're going to address those gaps. So month 2, evidence, analysis, and a potential solution. So month 3, now you're going to formulate the solution. Try not to do it alone. You will, of course, formulate the solution first and then discuss it with colleagues or any other way that you think is a good idea. Then complete the rest of the thesis. So by the end of month 3, you should have proposed a solution. You should have produced an action plan, a budget, and a risk management assessment. And we'll explain those in a few minutes. Main point is that you've produced this Gantt chart of your timeline and you're monitoring with the mentor how well you're progressing. So just some of the basics on the thesis. It's got to be original work. You've got to show your logic and your analysis. Work independently, but discuss with colleagues. That's okay. You have to do the work, but you can discuss with colleagues and other people what they think about it. You're looking at 10,000 words. You will not be penalized if you submit more, but you don't get any extra marks for more either. It needs to be a professional looking document in the sense that it's well laid out, and there's templates available for that. So the 10,000 words does not include the cover pages, the bibliography, the references. It has to be meat that we're looking at for the 10,000 words. It needs to be original. Please do not try to copy a project report. We use, like most universities now, anti-plagiarism detection software. Really quite advanced. If you try to copy an existing report, it will be discovered. Doesn't mean that you can't use an existing report. You can cite it. You can use the information from there, but you can't present that as your original research. You have to cite and reference it. Less than 10,000 words will be rejected. So what counts as original? You collect new evidence, a survey, or you collect information like purchase orders or issue vouchers. Or You can analyze the existing data. You can take an existing report, which has got data in it, and analyze it in a different way. That's original as well. Doesn't mean all the data has to be original if I analyze it in a different way. Or you can formulate a new solution to the problem. So there's an existing report, but they proposed a solution that didn't work. You can propose a new and entirely different solution. Or you reach a new conclusion. Each of those is original. You can do any combination of them, but you have to do one or more of them. You can't just take an existing project report and present it as your own. That will not work. It has to be original research. Cite reports, use extracts from reports by all means. That's encouraged. But you have to do some original research. What can you use? Data from previous reports and publications? Yes, but you must cite and credit the source and perhaps analyze it in new ways. You can use quotations and extracts. Cite and credit the source and perhaps use that findings to reinforce your own ideas. You can use solutions suggested by other parties if you cite and credit them. You can say, well, expiry is a problem. In this country, they did a training program. We want to do the same training program. It's okay, provided you cite that that's where you got the idea from. You can reach the same conclusion as other reports. That's okay. If you cite and credit them, saying they support my findings, that's also okay. So understand the difference between original and citation. So what do you have to do? Select one particular area that you're going to have. Describe the problems, confirm the problems, formulate solutions, an outline action plan, key performance indicators for measuring progress of your action plan, an outline budget, and an outline risk management. The evidence, who says it's a problem? At least 2 published references. How serious is the problem? You can do research, you can use a questionnaire, or you can do a literature review. Solution, who else has tried this? Did it work? Perhaps 1 published reference. If no one else has tried it, that's okay. You say it's not been tried before. How will you measure, monitor it? Some KPI, key performance indicators, and if possible, a reference for those KPI they've been used before. Try to choose a problem that's solvable. It's going to be really difficult to convince the Ministry of Health to employ 300 new staff and spend $10 million. So that's probably not a good choice for your thesis. ARV expiry is an easy one, but there's lots of other areas as well. Dow mentioned lead times, looking at lead times. That would be a prime area to look at. Some original research. Where is it occurring? Where is the problem? Look at the problems and then think how to address them. Mentor is available to provide guidance, but you must do the work. Mentors can only guide. They cannot do the research for you. They cannot write the thesis for you. They can help you source information and review ideas and proposal. And on the right is a boundary which the mentors cannot cross of the support they can give you. Writing the dissertation, sole responsibility of the student. The supervisor can comment on the drafts. Okay? So look at what the mentor can do, what they can't do. State how you're going to identify the problem. Highlight any new approaches or new technologies you want to use. Technologies that might not be new, but perhaps new to this country that you're studying. Explain why you think it's going to work. Why have they not been tried before? Well, often because there was no money, but okay, it's need to state that as well. And an outline action plan to address the problem. KPI to monitor progress, an outline budget. A simple Excel sheet is all that's needed, just one page. Perhaps you're going to include staff costs and some technical assistance. Perhaps you're going to have a workshop. Perhaps some equipment's needed. Some commodities might be needed. Might need some external services like quality assurance testing. Let's put it together. You then need a risk assessment and mitigation. Again, just one page. You've all done the risk assessment module, but you're just going to do a very basic, simple one on your action plan. What's the risks of your action plan? So here is a sample budget. This is for training. You're going to do training, some international technical assistance. You're going to have a workshop for training of trainers. You're going to have training on site, a workshop for operators, some new personnel. If you don't know what the unit costs are, we can assist you with some unit costs. But that's the kind of detail we're looking for. One page. And that's on your action plan. What's my action plan? I'm going to train people in how to do it. And this is my budget for the action plan. Just very, very basic. Risk assessment, again, only basic. And we can use the Global Fund, what they call a heat map, where we just use colors. So green is low risk, yellow is medium risk, and red is high risk. And we can perhaps best explain it with an example. So perhaps an example is, I'm going to take my expiry rates, and I'm going to do training the workers in the warehouse. And perhaps when they're better trained, we'll get less expiry. So what's the risk on my action plan? Well, first risk is that nobody comes to the training. And then the next risk is they come to the training, but they all fall asleep. They don't pay any attention to old professors droning on. And then they come to the training, but they don't implement. They don't ever follow up on anything they've been taught. What's the mitigation? What can I do to reduce those risks? Well, I could ask the minister to issue the instruction to come to the training. People pretty much pay attention to that. Can try and make the training a bit exciting, not too boring, not too much chalk and chalk. What about implementation? I can try and put some incentives in and bonuses for reducing expiry wastage. Could be simple little things. Doesn't have to be a lot of cash. But that's the example risk assessment. Very basic heat map, just one page around those areas. So there is the Global Fund heat map on the left. On the right would be my kind of risk assessment. We talked about poor attendance, poor absorption, poor implementation, and my mitigation. That's all I need to do. Simple. Identify a few of the risks, 3 or 4, no more than that, and what I might be able to do to reduce the risk level. And that's all based on my action plan. So the risk mitigation, review monthly progress, look at product risk, look at government oversight on the risk all the time to mitigate, to reduce the risk. Finally, I'm going to do the conclusions. Clear, concise conclusions. This is the problem. I've proposed a solution. There's a good chance it's going to work, or we're not sure, we'll have to try it and see. We don't have enough evidence. You can add appendices and you can add an index if you wish. It's not compulsory. You decide if you want to include information in those areas. How is it marked? There's a formal scoring matrix that's to be used, and it will be by an independent marker, not your mentor. Your mentor doesn't get to mark it. That's done independently. The matrix, the scoring matrix, is included in the Phase 4 briefing notes. You can see which sections carry the highest marks, put more focus, put more effort into those sections. We do not normally release the detailed scores. You only get your overall score on the dissertation. The scoring is reviewed by an external monitor. It's part of the accreditation process. And it then goes to an external audit to make sure that the scores are impartial and fair. So we've got 3 levels of marking on the thesis. So in overall terms, it's not that hard. It does require planning. It does require original research. Guidance and support is available, but you must do the work. Okay, that's the end of that session. It's question time again. Okay, if you'd like to raise your hands or type anything in the chat box, do we have?
Hello.
Hello, are we lost Prof or something?
Yes, I lost
It would
the
appear so. I
screen.
lost him myself.
Yeah, I guess due to some internet connectivity, he just lost us. So we'll just wait for. Okay,
Or they can ask. I'll try.
he is there. Just give me a second. I'm just letting him in the meeting. Yes, he is joining back. Sir, am I audible to you? Prof, am I audible to you? Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you now. Yes, thank you. Now you can unmute, please, and
Okay, yeah, me again. So, Dr. Andy, can you please talk more about the requirement of at least 2 publication? So back to my example, in Vietnam, we just have this issue for several years, for 3 years, but no one work on that issue.
okay,
so how?
That's fine. You can cite that you have collected information, and you will provide an extract of that information in the appendices of the thesis. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
That's no problem. Sorry, I lost you there for a few minutes. Our power went down for while they changed generators here. So, okay. No questions. So everyone feels happy to write the thesis now. Then they can all go forward. I can expect.
Prof,
Yes, go ahead. Sorry, sir.
are there any specific features that needs to go into our titles?
Yes, you will find in the briefing notes a layout, a template for the thesis. And the title page is there, and all the sections that you need to complete are there.
Okay,
So
all right, thank you so
that's
much.
quite a long PDF document that you will get as a reference in how to do it.
All right, thank you so much.
Anything in the chat? Is there a standard template for the thesis? Yes, there is, and that's in the briefing notes, and you'll see the section headings which are included there. You can alter them a little bit according to your particular topic and the type of research you're doing.
Prof?
Yes, please go ahead.
This is Francis. Are you considering already if by God's grace we make it through this course, accompanying us beyond this one to something better than this?
If you're looking at a PhD, a doctorate, we are working on it. It's probably beyond my scope now, but yes, we have discussed this. We'd like to do it, but I mean, frankly, it's taken us 6 years to get this master's course accredited. And that's been the delay. We wrote the master's course 5 years ago, and it's taken us this long to get an agency to give you accreditation. I mean, we really have spent a lot of time with universities in Europe and other areas to try and get full accreditation. Finally, we've succeeded with UNITAR, the UN agency, which carries the necessary status to be able to give you a real master's degree. The problem around the doctorate is not doing it, is to get the accreditation. Hopefully with UNITAR, we could be able to do that now. But I mean, the postgraduate diploma, we were able to cooperate with Kent State University. They couldn't go to the masters with us. We went a lot of times with all sorts of universities who just wanted to add thousands and thousands of dollars to the course costs to be able to use their name. And we just said, we can't do that. It's just not possible. So fortunately with UNITAR, we have a good partner, which brings the accreditation. Even so, we have to go through the accreditation service in the UK. And I think however heavy your dissertation is, our accreditation paperwork is about 100 times heavier. What we had to do for that. So it's really around the accreditation. If we can get it, yes, we'll be looking at the doctorate in the future.
Okay. Thanks, Prof.
No problem. Esther, please go ahead.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks, Prof. We've really enjoyed this course so far. So my question is on, in terms of the evidence, like how far back should one go? Like, for example, if you're looking at a KPI like order fill rate, and you want to improve probably the order fill rate of commodities. So, you know, what data is valid? Is it 1 year? Is it 2 years? How far back should we go? Thank you.
Okay, you get to decide, but as a general guide, I would suggest the last 12 to 18 months is probably good. However, the problem there is everything has been disrupted by COVID. So we might have to go back earlier into more normal times to look at the operation if we're not to be totally distorted by COVID. But if we can, 12 to 18 months, I think, is a reasonable guidance.
Okay, thank you.
I'll perhaps just ask Dr. Jamal again if he wants to make any comments and any observations on that.
No, thank you. Thank you.
Okay. More questions once I start planning? Yes, of course. That's what your mentor is for. They will be there to help answer some of those questions, and I'll be around as well. You know how to contact me. That's easy enough. I think I'm running about 1 webinar a week at the moment, so it's always easy to get in touch with me on the webinars. I'll wait 2 more minutes for questions and then we can end the session. And you will receive, of course, the slide deck and access to the PDF file, which is the details, briefing notes for the thesis.
I think there will be no more question. Thank you, Dr.
Okay,
Andy
all
and
right
team.
now. Thanks very much. Have a good
Yeah.
night. Okay, then I say good
Yeah.
night to all. Thank you for joining us wherever you are in the world. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening.
Thank you
Stay
so
healthy,
much, Prof.
Dr. Andy.
Okay,
Good evening.
namaste.
Thank you so much, Prof.
Okay, bye for
Thank
now.
you. Thank you, Dr. Jamal. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Dr. Gamal.
Bye.